We live in a world obsessed with data, analysis, and careful planning. We're told that the more information we gather, the better our decisions will be. But Malcolm Gladwell argues that some of the most powerful decisions we make happen in the blink of an eye. In his 2005 bestseller Blink, The Power of Thinking Without Thinking, Gladwell explores the hidden power of rapid cognition, the decisions our brains make instantly, without conscious thought. These snap judgments can be surprisingly accurate, but they can also mislead us. The book is full of fascinating stories and research about how intuition works, when to trust it, and when to be cautious. Welcome to 10-Minute Books, the channel where we break down the world's most powerful books into practical lessons you can absorb in just 10 minutes. Today, we're diving into Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, a book that reveals how quick decisions shape our lives and how we can learn to use them wisely. The core idea: thin slicing. Gladwell introduces the concept of thin slicing, our brain's ability to make quick judgments based on very limited information. This happens in situations where we don't have time for deep analysis, and it's often surprisingly effective. For example, researchers could predict whether a marriage would succeed or fail with 90% accuracy after watching just a few minutes of a couple's interaction. Their brains picked up on subtle cues like tone, facial expressions, and body language information processed unconsciously. Thin slicing shows that we don't always need endless data. Sometimes a sliver of information is enough for a good decision. The statue that wasn't. One of the book's most famous stories is about the Getty Museum purchasing a Greek statue known as the Kouros. After extensive scientific analysis, experts declared it authentic, but when art historians looked at it briefly, they had an immediate gut feeling that something was off. Their intuition turned out to be right. The statue was a fake. Despite all the scientific testing, quick, expert intuition proved more accurate. This story illustrates both the power and mystery of rapid cognition. When intuition works. Gladwell argues that intuition works best in areas where people have deep expertise. An experienced firefighter, for example, can sense that a building is about to collapse without consciously knowing why. Years of training allow the subconscious mind to recognize patterns instantly. Similarly, doctors who trust their instincts in high-pressure situations can sometimes diagnose faster and more accurately than with prolonged testing. Intuition is not magic. It's the result of experience and pattern recognition. When intuition fails, but intuition isn't always reliable. Our unconscious judgments are shaped by biases, stereotypes, and hidden associations. Gladwell points to experiments showing implicit bias in hiring, policing, and education. For instance, orchestras once had far fewer women until auditions were conducted behind a screen. Suddenly, female musicians were hired in much higher numbers. The music hadn't changed, but unconscious bias had been exposed. This shows that snap judgments can be deeply flawed when shaped by prejudice, priming, and unconscious influence. Another fascinating area Gladwell explores is priming the way subtle cues in our environment influence behavior without us realizing it. In one study, students who were primed with words related to old age walked more slowly afterward. In another, people primed with aggressive words behaved more impatiently. This demonstrates that our unconscious minds are constantly absorbing signals, shaping our behavior in ways we don't consciously control. The importance of environment. Because our unconscious is so sensitive to context, the environment we create matters. A chaotic or biased environment can lead to poor snap judgments, while a structured, fair environment can make them more accurate. For example, the introduction of blind auditions in orchestras removed visual bias and allowed talent to shine. By changing the environment, people's snap judgments became more reliable. The power of first impressions. Gladwell notes that first impressions can be powerful and often accurate, but they're also fragile. In job interviews, for example, much of the decision is made in the first few minutes based on unconscious cues. This can be dangerous if it leads to snap biases, but it can also be useful when evaluating honesty, warmth, or compatibility. The key is knowing when to trust these impressions and when to pause and look deeper. The locked door. Gladwell uses the metaphor of the locked door to describe our unconscious processes. We often can't explain why we feel a certain way, because the decision happened behind the locked door of the subconscious. For instance, someone might instantly dislike a piece of art, or feel uneasy in a situation without knowing why. The conscious mind struggles to articulate what the unconscious has already decided. This doesn't mean we should ignore intuition, but we should recognize its limits. Learning to use blink thinking. Gladwell doesn't suggest relying only on snap judgments or only on analysis. Instead, he encourages balance. The goal is to know when to trust rapid cognition and when to slow down and think carefully. Practical steps include: build expertise. Intuition improves with experience. The more patterns you've seen, the more accurate your snap judgments become. Be aware of bias. Recognize that unconscious prejudice can distort intuition. Design better environments. Create systems like blind auditions that reduce bias and improve decision-making. Trust instincts in emergencies. In high-pressure, time-sensitive situations, intuition can be more effective than overthinking. Case studies and stories. The book is full of memorable stories. Police officers in New York who made a tragic mistake when they misread a situation in seconds, highlighting the dangers of flawed snap judgments. Psychologists predicting divorce outcomes based on just a few minutes of observation. A tennis coach who could predict double faults before they happened, even though he couldn't explain how he knew. Military war games where overanalysis caused failure, while rapid decision-making led to surprising victories. Each story reinforces the idea that rapid cognition is powerful but not infallible. Criticism and balance. Some critics argue that Gladwell oversimplifies complex science or cherry-picks examples. Others say he doesn't provide clear enough rules for when to trust intuition. Still, his storytelling and insights have sparked widespread discussion about decision-making, bias, and the role of intuition in modern life. Modern relevance. In a fast-paced world filled with information overload, Blink feels more relevant than ever. We are constantly making rapid decisions on social media, in business, in relationships. Gladwell reminds us that these decisions are powerful, but also vulnerable to bias. By becoming aware of how our unconscious works, we can improve the quality of our snap judgments. The big takeaway: Blink teaches that our unconscious mind makes rapid decisions all the time. These snap judgments can be brilliant when rooted in expertise, but dangerous when distorted by bias. The key is to recognize when to trust intuition and when to step back and analyze. The question is, in your own life, are you letting unconscious bias mislead you, or are you cultivating expertise that makes your intuition sharper? That was Blink by Malcolm Gladwell, broken down in under 20 minutes. Which idea resonates most with you thin slicing, the locked door, or the dangers of bias? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this summary, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to 10-Minute Books, and ring the bell so you never miss our weekly breakdowns of life-changing books. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the blink of an eye, your mind is already making decisions. The more you understand it, the better your choices will be.